It's Cheryl Toomey again. I just took them as we got them, folks. I just picked them up and did them. Let's see. What is your greatest fear? What on this earth scares the bejesus out of you? That's a terrific question. It's probably the question. I thought about it for just a minute. It's not even that long, a split second, really, and I immediately came up with the answer because I identified what it was not too long ago. The thing that I really fear the most is I fear this millennial generation's ability to cope with the kind of problems that they're going to deal with. I've always been worried. I'd make a living worrying about the external threats to this country, internal threats. The debt is terrifying. Russia resurgent is scary. China's scary. Losing our edge technologically is scary. I don't think too much of global warming, but the debt bomb is scary. All of this stuff is actually serious, very serious problems. But I do not see any sign that these millennials as a generation are going to be able to handle any of it. Now, every time I say that, I got to clarify this. There's some terrific conservatives out there who are really young, including the people that brought me up to that high school, that Jewish high school. I mean, these kids went out and raised money to get me up there. And they started their little conservative group up in the school. It was called the Rebel Alliance. So they're out there. And needless to say, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, just about everybody in the military is the guys on the sub, and the guy, even those miscreants and malcontents, alcoholics, and perverts down at Eglin Air Force, Eglin Air Force Base, wherever CENTCOM is. When I was down there, even those guys were pretty competent. These F-16 pilots who gave me my call sign, but. As a rule, I am very, very concerned about them. They can't deal with a different opinion on campus without trying to shut it down, having protests, needing counseling. I mean, Milo Yiannopoulos, who I think is terrific. I think he's just terrific. He goes and speaks on a campus. He's probably, I think he called his tour the Dangerous Faggot Tour. So here's a guy who's so incredibly kind of hip and basically harmed MacDill. Sorry about that. Foghorn. It was MacDill Air Force Base. I was so lit I couldn't tell you. I probably would have driven the electric bike all the way to Eglin, which is up in the Panhandle. MacDill. Sorry about that. But Milo is causing these people to have heart palpitations and therapy, and they need counseling for weeks after. Hearing somebody speak of something with differing opinions from theirs. Now, a lot of it is acting out, and a lot of it is the giant virtue signaling, show where you're just trying to show off about how sensitive you are. I understand that. But I don't know. We've had enormous problems in this country, and we've had generations that dealt with them. I don't know about these kids. There's something different. There is, needless to say, that every generation assumes that the next generation is just utterly worthless and weak and stupid and is going to cause the death of everybody. I was in a tech manual for aliens. It was like an aliens piece of fiction, but it was like the aliens handbook to the colonial marines. Cutaway diagrams of the drop ship and all the weapons and all that other stuff. It was beautifully written. It was really, really clever. Actually, really clever. And there was a term in that, and I never forgot. And he was basically saying, he was speaking as a sergeant in the Colonial Marines, 100 years from now, 200 years from now. And he was saying, that sergeants, going back to flinty Israelites, sergeants have been talking about how much better their generation was, not this newfangled stuff with your trumpets to blow down a wall. If we wanted to, knock down a wall, we'd go pull it apart with our bare hands, not use these newfangled trumpets and marching around the city 7 times of Jericho before we blow our horns and the walls come down, So there's that. But I genuinely think these kids are different. And the greatest generation was actually really mocked. I mean, you can almost make the case that the reason that we were attacked by Japan was they were so sure coming out of the Roaring 20s They were so sure that Americans were decadent, lazy cowards that they didn't bomb Pearl Harbor with the plan to have their entire culture wiped out and a couple of nuclear bombs dropped on them. That was not their objective when they launched that sneak attack. They attacked Pearl Harbor because they were pretty sure that that the Americans weren't going to fight for it, that we would actually literally just say, well, well played, and that we would retreat from the Pacific and then they'd be on their own. But they underestimated those guys, and So I guess what I'm trying to say is they thought they were weak and stupid and lazy, and it turned out they were the greatest generation. But I think there is something different about this generation, and I think it's the electronics. It's the electronics, and it's the first time that we've ever had an American cohort raised by socialists, and also not only just raised by socialists, but raised in such comfort that they've never known any kind of hardship. I mean, look, I've never been really hungry in my life. I've been cold a couple of times, but never really. Well, that's not true, actually. In college, I was 119 pounds. I was hungry for a year or two, like genuinely hungry, like starving hungry. Find money under the, drive-in window hungry. So actually, I have been, come to think of it. But these kids, generally speaking, haven't. And 24-hour entertainment, 24-hour access to information. They're never bored. They're never out of touch. They're never alone. They don't seem to talk to each other the way that my generation, everybody previously, in fact, Gen X and Gen Y, these millennials seem different from them. These devices, I think, are causing a tremendous amount of damage that they don't realize. And their interpersonal skills are terrible, and their ability to cope with crisis is terrible because they've never been allowed to cope with a crisis. They've been fed this, self-esteem movement where everybody wins and nobody loses, and everybody's a champion, and everybody's gold star goes on there. And there goes our operation manager, Carla, leaving after a long day at BillWhittle.com, sneaking out like she's probably got my checkbook with me, and here's the rest of the cash for the day. Yeah, they've just been, I don't know, I think they've been just really coddled, and I think that they were coddled because their parents, which really is my generation, the greatest generation came back, and I'm not going to go into all this, I've talked about this before, but the greatest generation came back and they saw some horrible things, and they saved the world, made the world safe for democracy, but as parents they had some flaws. I guess when you've watched enough of your friends turn into pink mist, you're probably going to spend the rest of your life sitting on a lazy boy and listening to Perry Como and Lawrence Welk, and you don't want any loud noises, and you don't need any more excitement. You've had plenty of excitement by the time you're 23 or 24. So I think they're a bit distant, and I think that my generation as parents overcompensated for that by not only being there for the kids, but by trying to be their kids' pal. And every time I see a kid acting up in a Walmart or on an airplane, every time I see a kid screaming at the top of his lungs for minutes at a time, just screaming, every single time that there is a male there, a father there, every single time, the first words out of their mouths are, "What's the matter, buddy?" Pal. And that's not what a dad is. So they're really worry me. If they can't handle, could have answered this in one sentence. If they can't handle Milo Yiannopoulos speaking in an auditorium, what are they going to do when kids their age who have been sawing the heads off of people since they were 6 come over here and decide to take this past the discussion stage? That's what it comes down to. They're just so soft. They don't. Now you could look. If things really go south, if the other shoe drops and it really goes south, they'll toughen up real fast. They'll toughen up or die, and it'd be amazing what genuine hardship will do for people in the space of very short period of time. If you chucked them all out in the jungle and gave them a guy who knew what he was doing and said, you either do these things like go get your own water, kill that little rabbit over there, skin it and cook it, or you starve to death. So they toughen up, but I don't know. That's the actual answer, Cheryl. That's what really does scare me is the lack of mental toughness of this generation, which is accelerating. As they get more and more attention for this kind of acting out, it just accelerates. And by the way, when everybody gets a gold star, you're breeding socialists, right? If no one wins, nobody loses, everybody gets the participant award, you're breeding socialists. You're breeding people who not only are going to get the same income as all the rest of them, but actually deserve it, because no one's being better, no one's excelling, no one's taking risks, no one's working harder. Everybody's just coming in, they're getting their gold star, and they're checking their Facebook status and tweeting a couple things and putting up the picture of their lunch on Instagram, and they don't seem to be terribly ambitious to me at all as a cohort. With that said, the kid that brought me up there went out and raised the money for me. They're all gonna be working for him.